How's it going, YouTube? Today we're going to be taking a look at the Transformers Kingdom War for Cybertron trilogy Voyager class Dinobot. A really cool figure and a really cool addition to this Transformers Kingdom line. Definitely a much needed character for a Beast Wars collection, and this figure really goes back to the roots and makes a very nice homage to the original uh, Beast Wars Beast Wars Dinobot figure. So on the package we have this really nice artwork of his robot mode as well as his dinosaur mode, which is more or less a Jurassic Park-esque Velociraptor. However, um, more modern science has actually proved that the Velociraptor did not look like this, and this is actually more along the lines of a Deinosuchus. Coming to this side, we actually see this Kingdom artwork that we've seen on all the other boxes, and it just every time I see this, it looks so good. This is such a nice scene here. We have most of the characters that are going to be showing up in this line. I do hope we see a Tigertron in this line. That would be fantastic, as he's appeared on all of the box art, as well as some of the other media that we've actually seen. We are getting Scorponok and Rhinox in the next wave of figures to come out, which is another great, something that's completely amazing for this line. I would also like to see an update on Waspinator, mostly because I don't want to have to track down that 2013 Thrilling 30s version. Here we have on the back of the box some product renders. These colors aren't exact to what we get on the figure itself. A lot of this stuff did get changed, like this section here would have been a lot better if they had kept it this colors, but they ended up using the more animation colors for his robot mode rather than making the dinosaur mode look much better. And that is all for the package. He came with a duplicate card, so I'm not going to show the card, but here he is in his really nice robot form, and he looks good. Very clean robot mode, not too much of a backpack, and what is there is basically just the base of his tail. Looking at his details, he has this really nice metallic orange, almost like copper plastic on this lower legs. His feet are molded in a nice brown color. He has this kind of grayish brown paint here, almost like a dried mud look type of color. Moving up, you have some copper paint to match this plastic, and it's not a 100% perfect match, but it still looks good nonetheless. He has this really nice, almost like an antique gold paint here on this cod piece. Coming up here, you have some more of that gold color as well as blue, a really nice matte blue at that. And then coming up here to the head, you have some more of that matte blue, which looks really nice for his face. His eyes are painted red, and then he has some black detailing around his helmet. The eyes for his chest actually look pretty good. And they're faux eyes, because you can see, if you look here, you can see the eyes of the actual dinosaur head here, but it doesn't cause too much. There is a bit of like break up here, but it was kind of necessary for what this figure does. Once again, coming around to the back, it's fairly clean. He does have a small backpack, but that's perfectly okay, as there have definitely been worse versions of this character. Articulation wise, his head is on a ball joint, and he can look all sorts of ways. He can look full 360 on the swivel, look up a fair ways, look down actually quite well. and then of course bob side to side. He has a joint here in his shoulder that allows his arms to come up at that joint, as well as the universal here. So it works as a universal joint between these two joints and the swivel. So that comes up there. I'm muddling through some allergies right now, so that's probably why I sound bad, and you'll hear me like sniff a little bit, but anyway. Rotation at the bicep, really nice. His elbow bends, and he can bend backwards a fair bit, mostly for his dinosaur mode, as his arms become the dinosaur's legs. He has a wrist swivel as well as a hinge back and forth at the wrist, and his fingers do articulate. And he has a hole here, so he can actually hold his weapons. He has a swivel at the waist. It's back a little bit toward the back of the lower body section. It doesn't detract at all. It still looks really good. It's almost like it's in line with his actual spine, so that would be the actual natural pivot of his spine. And that can pivot all the way around for transformation. His hips are on universals, so they can go out that far for a full split, and go forward that far, and back not very far, just due to the way this part is molded to be the chest of the dinosaur. He has a really tight rotation at the thigh swivel, and it is very tight. There's no way of really loosening it up unless you were to drip some oil or something in there, or had some way of loosening this pin here. I kind of wish they would have put a screw there, because this is very, very tight. And honestly, I feel like it needs to be just a tad bit looser. Same with this joint. His knee joints are very tight as well. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, but they feel like they're way too tight for what they need to do. Especially since these don't support the alternate mode in any way. It would have been nicer if this joint, the elbow joint, were a bit tighter and these were a bit looser. Because it takes a considerable amount of force for me to move this joint, and it takes even more force for me to actually rotate his thigh. And it feels kind of scary, honestly. But this does go all the way around. This can go forward a little bit for his transformation, and then it can come back to a little over 90 degrees. And then his ankles are on a rocker, as well as he has toe tilt downward, not really upward, but he does have a considerable amount downward. And that's pretty much it for his articulation. Now, moving on to his accessories, he only comes with two. He comes with, basically, it's the tail of the dinosaur, and this part can split open, and it reveals the sword inside. And in the show, this would spin, and I think he spun the whole thing, really. And then this can also come out, so he can use this as his spinning shield. Unfortunately, it's not on a free spinning piece, which would have been nice. And then the sword has this peg off to the side, so he can actually hold that in his palm. And then you can close his fingers around that. And then you can also plug this into his opposite palm so that he can wield both of his signature weapons. Now, if you wanted to store these in robot mode, you just kind of pull them away from his hands, plug this back into here, and close it up. And then this can store here, which is where it would attach in dinosaur mode as well. And that way he can store his weapons. I do wish he would have come with a golden disc accessory. That would have been very nice. However, the golden disc accessories are actually going to be released with the Ark. I have no intention of actually picking that up. I might see if somebody, I believe it comes with 2 golden discs. I might see if somebody will sell me one of theirs, just so he has that golden disc accessory. But we'll just have to see when that's released, how that's going to play out. So, very nice looking figure in robot mode. And coming around to the back, you can see even with the tail here, it's not too obtrusive. It's just, really just the tail sticking down off there, almost like it could be like a realistic weapon storage that he would use, just due to the fact that it goes there for his alternate mode anyway. Now to get down to transformation, I'm going to remove the tail for just for ease of access to, move around everything that needs to be moved for transformation. It'd more than likely just fall off when I move this piece anyway. Now this piece is odd because getting into this mode, it only wants to sit into one of the grooves on the sides, so it does sit in a bit of an angle. But anyway, you just want to pop this out and just bring it all the way out like that, and see how I said this hinge would probably knock the tail off anyway. Next, you kind of want to just raise the arms like this and bring them up at both of those hinges. So rotate it, bring it up at both of those hinges like so. So he's kind of pointing straight up. Bring out these dinosaur arms, which make up his flanks, and just kind of pull those out and around to the side just to get him out of the way. Now we can kind of rotate his waist all the way around to the back and make sure his legs are straightened out like so. So they kind of line up here in the middle. Alright, now comes the fun part. So we're going to go ahead and reach under here and pull up his sides. And then these pieces here will actually rotate and lock together with there, like so. And you do the same thing on the other side. And this will actually form the dinosaur's thighs. Then you can bring the arms down and they will sit inside those cavities like so. And like so. Alright, so the next part we're going to do is just kind of grab here at this point and just pull this away. It tabs right here under his chin into the back of the dinosaur's head. And you're going to go ahead and bring this back, bring it down all the way if you want. And then you're going to unclip here, and you'll feel it kind of thoop out of place. There's also this tab here that goes into a slot in there. And just bring his head up and over, like so. You can bring this up, and then that will tuck around his head, and this tab here will go into that slot there. And that's basically, you'll just hide his head away for his dinosaur mode. Now for his legs, you want to open these panels up here. And it would have been nice if they had like a small weapon that could also hide in there for robot mode. Anyway, bring his knees all the way up against the front of his thighs. Once again, flip that shin piece out. And then bring his feet down and fold the heels into there. There's these two tabs here on this main torso section, which will actually tab into his knee pads. So you just want to bring those up and tab those in to his knees, like so. And then there's two tabs on these copper sections, which will actually tab in to this slot here and on the other side on this assembly. You kind of want to get the feet out of the way. You can actually, if you want, bring them up because they're going to be tabbing into this tail section also. Just bring those up and around, and you can see that one snapped into place and that one snapped into place, and they just tab into the sides right here. You can see those two small tabs. So that's what you got now. You can go ahead and bring his legs all the way down, and then rotate the hands and open up these claws like so. And then you just kind of want to straighten his legs out so he looks like he's in kind of a proper stance. We can now attach his tail, bring his head up, and then unclip his hands from the forearms. And there is Dinobot in his raptor mode. And he looks pretty good. For the most part, he looks pretty good. These hands are kind of weird. I don't like how they're just like always limp like that. It's grown on me a little bit, but it's still awkward to me. Because he just, good solid arm and then flop. And I guess you can kind of bring them into the middle and like fold them together as best you can. Kind of like he's scheming or something. Or bring it up and he can scratch his head. I mean, that's kind of an option as well. It's hard to not see that these are literally just his thighs here as the sides of the body, but I feel like for the $30 price point, he does a really good job at hiding most of the dinosaur or most of the robot parts in dinosaur mode. Really, it's just the legs that seem to be obtrusive. That said, if you want a figure that's not a shell former, you're going to have to, make some sacrifices in the design process. The Masterpiece Dinobot sure looks a lot better than this does in dinosaur mode. However, it does have shell pieces that have to fold up inside of the robot mode, making a more complex transformation. Where at a $30 price point, I think that this is a really good sacrifice, or not really sacrifice, but really good option, where you don't have a whole bunch of shell pieces that have to hide away somewhere or become a backpack, but you have like a little bit of obtrusive design here that doesn't quite mesh with the rest of the dinosaur. I have seen people who've customized theirs to make it one more screen accurate and as well as hide away this gold plastic coloring in the dinosaur mode. For articulation in this mode, his mouth does open and close, which is really cool. And his mouth on the inside is actually painted, the tongue at least, and the teeth. He's missing all of these teeth here, which I know was a huge point of contention with the studio series Dinobot, as well as a bit of a point of contention when it came to the Kingdom Megatron, which I'll cover in a future review. He does have this little spring-loaded panel for the transformation, which is really nice. They could have left that out, but they didn't, so definitely appreciate that. These arms are on hinge swivels, so they swivel around at the base point and then hinge out, and it works as a universal. His elbows are on a single joint that goes up to 90 degrees like so, and can also bend back to almost 90 degrees to the back. And his wrists are on ball joints, so they can rotate, swivel, fold in, fold out. The legs, so here's why I kind of wish that the arm joints were a bit tighter than the leg joints in robot mode, because these are his elbows in robot mode, and they become his knees in this mode, and they just seem a little bit more loose than they should be for holding up the dinosaur mode. I mean, I don't have any fear of him just like flopping over, but they do seem a little bit more loose than they should be. And it's just this elbow joint here. He doesn't have any kind of motion at this at the hip itself, it's literally just the elbow where you get any kind of motion, which kind of sucks, but at the same time, this is a main line release and not the masterpiece figure, which I do believe had full articulation in the hips all the way through the legs for dinosaur mode. That being said, you can get him into some dynamic poses. Um, But I just wish that you could actually have moved these hips a little bit. That way, um, he could get into like a decent running pose. As he is now, you can't really get that. These panels don't hold together too well. It's not too big of a problem for this side. This side holds together really well. And I think maybe I just have this misaligned a little bit. Because I know sometimes when I have him in his dinosaur mode, they actually fit together a lot better. That being said, this seam is a lot more noticeable than the other side, because this seam seems to have been closed off a lot better than this side. And you can see there's a gap I can actually fit my my fingernail into. This side does not have that huge gap on this side. Anyway, this is a really cool figure from the Transformers Kingdom line, a really nice Voyager, and a very, very much beloved character from the Beast Wars era. I definitely recommend picking this figure up, as he is absolutely fantastic for the price point. So until my next video, this has been Weston at Weston's Toys Collectibles. Till all are one.